So we're in the middle of chapter 19, and we just started discussing a very beautiful and very significant idea. And what is that? Understanding the difference between the levels of awareness and knowledge that Moshe Rabeinu had and all the prophets had, the knowledge and awareness that all the great scholars and Kabbalists and the holy people had. And the primary difference is, we said, that Moshe Rabeinu or a Navi sees things in a form of Re'iyah, meaning they see, it's not that they understand, they see it. It's in front of their eyes. It's a absolute 100% awareness, not obviously not a physical seeing, not like seeing a cup in front of you, but it's seeing to the point of, I see it in the most spiritual, pure sense. And at the same time, there's another knowledge called understanding. I don't see it, but you can explain it to me. So when it says Moshe Rabeinu only reached the level of Netzach Hakodesh Malchus, he had the Chesenius of other things, but the Pnimius of Netzach Hakodesh Malchus, it means on those levels he understood, he saw, he perceived the truth of it 100%. It was the level of visual. Yes.
What's the difference between intuition and nevuah, let's say?
So intuition, very good. Intuition usually is I perceive something, which means some people could say I have an intuition. They either know something, why somebody's why someone's in pain, or they could feel why they have a certain intuition into something happening. But that doesn't mean I see it. It means I have a feeling, I have a sensation. I'm aware. Sorry.
Sometimes you think that something like this is going to happen, and suddenly it happens exactly the way you thought. Right? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that means I had a feeling, and I was correct. I didn't see it. In your mind, you might call it, I saw it in my mind's eye. That's not called visual. When we say visual here, that, by the way, is a real concept. There are people that have intuition.
Well, we all have intuition.
Well, some people have it much more revealed.
Yeah, right. Well, it's like everything.
Yeah. So, but when we talk about seeing something, we talk about an absolute 100% awareness of the thing itself. I'll give you a metaphor just in the concept. When somebody sees something, let's say I see something happen, a very strange thing happen, I see it. That truth of seeing it is so powerful that nobody can convince me otherwise. No one could say it's not possible. No one could say it can't happen. It doesn't matter. Logic, everything else falls aside. Why? I saw it happen. When you have a feeling about something, when you have a sensation, when you have a understanding of something, it could be challenged. Someone could say you felt wrong, you didn't understand it properly, you misinterpreted it. When you see something, it's an absolute seeing of the essence. And another thing is, sorry.
I'm sorry. What about a dream?
A dream also. A dream has a certain level of visual, but a dream is not an authentic visual. The dream has a separate problem. We have a vision of something, but it's not authentic. As a matter of fact, in the dream, you can have things that don't make sense take place. Right. A person could die and be awake 30 seconds later. Something could break and be fixed. Things that don't make sense can happen.
But there's other kinds of dreams.
Right. So again, these, and by the way, there's a certain type of prophecy that comes in the form of a dream. There are prophecies. Now you have to determine what's a real dream. Since in the dream you're sleeping, it's not an authentic thing. So when you see something in real life, you can say, I saw it, it's 100% true. When you see something in the dream, you're taking a great risk saying it's 100% true. Sometimes dreams, we have a famous thing, even the real dreams where you have prophecy in it, even then we say there's always something that's not true in it. There always has to be something that's not true. Dreams can't be 100% true. By definition, a dream, while in our terms that we use in in English language, we call I saw in a dream, that's not vision to the same sense of when I saw in front of me this cup. You see, if I see this cup in front of me, there's nothing that's going to say, someone's going to tell me it's not possible the cup is here, because I took the cup this morning and I threw it out. Or I took the cup and I gave it away. Or I cleared the table. It doesn't matter. I saw the cup there. You can say whatever you want. I saw it. It's an absolute 100, and not just I see it in what it is. In other words, when you don't see something, you have to explain. It's round, it's tall, it's black, it's cold, it's warm. I have to describe it. They're all details. When you see something, I see it. Somebody wants to describe to you what a cow is. I saw a cow. You can have 10 versions. It gives milk. It has skin. It has horns. It has a big head. It walks on four. None of those are going to really capture it until I say, oh, that's a cow. I see it. Visual is a whole nother story of understanding. So when we talk about visual here, it's not that it's different. but it's not just the concept of visual that we see. It's an absolute authentic experience. In other words, when you see something, you're experiencing the truth of what it is, not a description, not as something which is about it. And the easiest way to understand it is if you want to try to explain to somebody who can't see something. Somebody's in this room either because their eyes are blindfolded or God forbid they can't see. As much as you're going to explain it to them, you can see a picture on the wall. You could describe it to them and talk about it. Then, as much as you explained it, they didn't see it. You open their eyes, right, now I see it. There's a whole different level of experience. We say Moshe Rabeinu, it wasn't that he spoke about, so he understood godliness. That understanding godliness, he understood it up to Keser and Atik and above. But experiencing in its essence form what it really is, a godliness, that was only from the him. That's what we said last week. And what was the reason for it? Very simple. Not because Moshe had some concealment on his eyes and God forbid couldn't see. It was a part of God that's unseeable. As I gave the metaphor that a person who has different emotions and feelings and different experiences in their mind, what they're going through, you don't know what it is until they actually get to a level of expressing. We mentioned that the difference between Yesed, Gvur, and Tiferes and Netzach Chod Yesod Malchus is Netzach Chod Yesod are expressing what I feel. I'm actually giving something to the poor man. I'm smiling at somebody. I'm inviting you into my home. My feelings I have inside me, and certainly my thoughts, you can't see it. It's not because I'm blocking them. It's not able to be seen. Moshe Rabeinu was able to see every part of God that was seeable, but the part that's unseeable. To understand this in a good metaphor, a person who experiences a very traumatic or and it could be positive also, an extremely emotional or powerful experience. Sometimes it comes to a point that you can't speak. I can't speak. And maybe an hour later, 2 hours later, because I sort of unpack what happened. Let me explain what I was feeling, what I saw, what happened. Why is that? There are certain experiences that can't be expressed, in words. We might say it's because you're in panic, your adrenaline is rushing. Yes, it's true. The scientific and physiological reasons why when someone goes through a traumatic moment, they can't speak. But on a deeper level, the reason you can't speak, it's not speakable. There are parts of me I can't express. To go one step further, we'll talk about it in a few minutes. When I do express it, it is being expressed. If I want to share how happy I am for discovering a lost family member, or how sad I am, something painful happened to me, as much as I'm going to describe it in the words, I'm not capturing my real feelings. It hurts a lot. That doesn't suffice. Somebody who went through some unbelievable atrocity that we saw, in history or recent history, the words cannot capture. Why not? Because words can only capture Netzach Chod Yesod Malchus. It can only be expressed the lower parts. So when you're talking about what Moshe could see and experience fully, was Netzach Chod Yesod Malchus. Everything above that, I'm trying to describe. Now we get some grasp of it, some idea, but not the authentic feeling. This is what we said until now. We described that a Navi, where does he have the fullest experience? In Netzach Chod Yesod Malchus. There's nothing held back, 1,000% authentic. What happened, they see. But above that, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, certainly Chachma Ben Adas, is not something that's seeable by a Navi. But to understand it, yes. That's how we explained the words of the Arizal. The Arizal said a statement that at first seemed very surprising, that Moshe Rabeinu could only see the chetzonius of all the above levels, only in the world of Netzach Chod Yesod Malchus that he see actual truth and godliness in this form of seeing. How could it be? The Arizal, Shema Yechai, all these greats, and we ourselves trying to discuss. We talked about Keser, Atik, and Arich. The answer is Moshe Rabeinu were talking about seeing it, talking about it, understanding it, thinking about it. Is really anyone could do it. The question is how deep is your mind? How much could you grasp? How much do you, the famous, we spoke many times, Rabbi Steinsaltz's example of the map. When he says you have the highways, that our federal highways are painted in red and the other highways are blue. It doesn't mean when you come to the blue and the red. It means that's just for you to understand which is federal and which is state highways. In other words, a lot of times we talk about Chassidus, some people want to make a picture of it. There's a circle, and it's true. You could make a picture to explain the idea, but don't for a second think it's actually a circle. Don't think that the road's actually red. So some people, when they learn ideas in Torah, they try and project or try to understand it according to their past experiences. So they use metaphors and things that lock in the idea in such a primitive way. Some people have much more fine thoughts. They realize the metaphor I'm using is just to get a grasp, but really there's a much higher and truer, more authentic experience. When someone says I have a sharp pain, it doesn't mean it's sharp. It means it's a very sharp type of pain. How do you explain it? It's painful, yes, unfortunately. Okay. Top of page Kuf Chav Ches. Top of the page, we're going to start from here. We're going back a few lines because last week we ran off very quickly these 6-7 lines here. V'lochein, top of the page, third word. V'lochein gam kein hein hamaskalas l'neviim. It is those parts, Netzach, Yesed, Malchus, that actually gets seen and absorbed and experienced by a Navi. Because it's the Netzach, Yesed, Malchus, that is the seeable part, meaning for a Navi, of godliness. Therefore, that's the part they can experience. B'bchinas eskalas mamish. And that's how they can actually have a real, authentic experience. And Moshe Rabeinu, he didn't understand Netzach, Yesed of God. He saw it like someone could see the cup in front of them, except it wasn't physical sight because it wasn't looking with seeing a physical thing, but the experience was authentic. Like, just to give an example, we spoke once a long time ago about Avram Avinu, when God spoke to him and said, take your son Yitzchak to the mountain that I will show you and bring him as an offering. How do you know it wasn't a voice in his head? How do you know it wasn't some imagination? How do you know it wasn't some unhealthy experience?
In his age.
Yeah, technically he was 137 years old, So God forbid. But so what's the concept? The idea is we measure every authentic experience. Like if somebody says, pinch me, I wonder if it's real right now, pinch me, or I wonder if I'm awake, and this is real, this is amazing. So we have to prove and see I'm really awake. The awareness of Avram, Hashem speaking to him, was much more real than me standing in front of you and talking. Meaning we measure things. Could I see you right now? That the sensation that took him through his entire body, every fiber of his body felt, I don't want to say a vibration, that's not the right word, but every part of the body felt and experienced and saw and heard in the realness that is 1,000 times more real than you standing and talking to somebody else. You have to ask yourself, is that person in front of me real? And the more we experience this world, we have to ask ourselves what's real and what's not. But the Avram Avinu experience with God, it was so real. We don't have words to describe because we are limited to, could I touch it? Could I see it? Could I smell it? That is how we live in this box. But Avram Avinu experience is so real that it would be like a question, how do you know you're real? How do you know you exist? It's all in your head. In other words, that was absolute real. Okay. So when Moshe Rabeinu was seeing godliness, it wasn't like, he had a vision, he's trying to say, was it similar to a dream? It's a whole different level of experience that you understand, you experience, you feel, you perceive in a way which is absolute, overwhelmingly powerful. Not some like, I had a vision, or I thought I saw it. It's something which I can't explain what it is because I unfortunately or fortunately never experienced it. But it's definitely a much more authentic experience than anything we've experienced in life. Okay, now this hiskalos of, this true experience of, and this is the key we want to get to know, this true experience of Moshe Rabeinu and all the Nevi'im that saw Netzach Yesed Malchus, enclosed in that was all the other higher levels. As we said before, if you remember last week, we spoke about when something happens, you can sort of now unpack it and say if the person went and gave this person a hug, they must love each other, must be friends. You can start thinking what went inside the person, why he went and did this. That means in the experience is the chesronis of all the factors behind it. If you see somebody burst out crying, you see they're crying. You can start saying, 1 second, yesterday was their mother's yard site or whatever. You can start understanding what is going through the person's mind. Either you'll get it right, you'll get it wrong, but you could try and unpack it. So inside this experience, that's what you said, Mulubish Eir Habina, Shehi Bechinas Havanas Halikus Meir Ain't Safe Baruchu. Inside this experience, if you want to unpack it and understand what was the driving force behind it, why did this person do this emotional outburst or act of love or act of anger? A lot of times you say when the child acts up, instead of trying to stop him acting up, ask yourself what is hurting him inside. He acts up. A 5-year-old kid doesn't know to act up because he's rebellious. Something's hurting him. He's afraid. He's scared. He's nervous. He's worried. So you have to understand what's the driving force. And inside that bina, melubashim acharayim de chachma. Inside is the driving force is the chachma above it. That means we're working backwards. Like they, sometimes when they get a plane or some device from another country, They try and reverse manufacture. They try and understand what they built, and you take it apart to understand the manufacturing of an American airplane or American drone. They try and reverse manufacture, reverse the build. That's the concept. If you go back and you can start seeing what was the driving force in the Bina, was the Chachma behind it. There was some earlier experience, which is really, by the way, what a therapist does. When a therapist sees a kid, a child therapist, an adult, acting in a certain way, having a certain phobia or fear, you try and figure out what was the cause. Did something happen to you when you were younger? Is there some other cause? Is there some other? You try to get and really what it really this is a therapist approach to something that within this experience is something behind it. It wasn't just an isolated incident. There's some cause. What's that cause? The Bina inside of it, the Chachma behind it, etc. Because that Chachma, which is found, which is the earliest stage, the earliest experience or fact that drives this Netzach, Malchus, which is driven by Chesed Gvur Tiferes, which is driven by Bina, starts off in Chachma. And Chachma is at the very top of this chain that we're talking about, and that's a level that's above comprehension. And this is a very interesting idea we have to take a moment to understand. When we speak about Chachma, usually, we speak about it as the earliest stages of understanding. What's Chachma? Chachma is the first stage of understanding. What's Bina? Developing it further. As a famous metaphor is, Chachma is conception, that's the father. Bina is comprehension, the mother. And Das, you can say, is the process of making it application. But the truth is, Chachma is really, we describe it as the earliest stage, but there's really, the truth of Chachma is something not understandable. To just appreciate it, the metaphor, if you remember, we gave years ago, or a long time ago, to understand Chachma in a practical sense, is if you walk into a pitch black room at night and you walk into a strange house and you're lost and you go into a cabin and there's a flash of lightning, at that moment, the flash of lightning, there was zero comprehension. It was a flash. That's Chachma. Bina is now going to unpack, what did I just see? If you stop and think quickly, if you don't waste time, if you wait, you could lose it. You could lose that the first seed. But if you take it and apply it right away, okay, to our right was a staircase, in front of me was a sink, to the left was a couch. You start unpacking it. Similar to a seed planted in the ground. A seed planted in the ground, you can't open it up and look inside of it and see, I see tiny, tiny apples, and I see branches, I see leaves. No, it's all concealed. Nothing is there, but it's all there at the same time. But the level of Chachma is where it's all in a state of absolute concealment. It means it's there, but it's concealed. That's why Chachma is called Koyach Ma. The word Ma in Chassidus, the word Ma in Torah means what? Not understood. Famously, when Moshe and Aaron said, "V'nachnu ma," what are we? We're nothing. Ma is nothing. What? When you say what is what? What is it? So the Koyach Ma, the power of what, means it's not understood. What does the word Chachma mean? The power of what? Meaning the concept of not understood. Chachma by itself is not understandable. How do you understand it? You bring it to Bina. It's like a seed. You look at the seed. There's nothing you can know about the seed by looking at it. But you put it in the ground and let it develop. You'll see it grows into a beautiful apple tree or a fig tree or whatever it is. Same thing is with a lightning flash. When Chachma comes, it's an absolute state of concealment. And that's a very important key to understand the next few lines here. So while Chachma is the first stage of cognitive process, it's the stage of concealment. And it's a little counterintuitive, a little different what you expect. Because Chachma sounds like, okay, the first stage, now I start to understand it, then I expand it. No. Chachma is I don't understand it at all, but it's all there. It's like a piece of DNA. Everything's there, but you can't see it. It's complete concealment. And it's a very interesting detail that sometimes gets missed. He's like this. Let's go back inside. Kishem Chachma, the starting point of Chachma, Mode al Makar Hasechel Havana. It comes from, and it talks about the source of Seichel, the source of understanding, but is not yet understood. So Chachma is that which is not understood, but it's the source of understanding. And that's what we comprehend in the deepest ability of Hasaga that the Arizal worked on, the Rabbi Moshe worked on, of course, Moshe Rabeinu was able to achieve. For sure. We'll take a pause here, and now the chapter gets to the point. Until now, the whole parak was explaining something to get to a point. Remember, when we started the chapter, we said that we're going to explain Torah is a very strange reality. On one hand, it comes from Hashem as Hashem's wisdom. Something that can't just be that we have, we have Hashem's thinking all day about a cow that bumps into a cow, and a pair of tzitzis that's square or round and a hole in the middle for tzitzis strings. That's what Hashem's great wisdom is. It can't be. But that's what we talk about. So he wanted to say that in Torah, there's a wide band. The bandwidth of Torah is huge. To explain that, we had to first explain Rabeinu's perception. Now, and how there's different levels of chachma and understanding, etc. Now we're going to start here from here to the rest of the Perek, the next page and a half. We're going to explain all of the above we spoke about, applying it to Torah. So everything we learned until now is like the platform we're going to use. Now take that information and superimpose it on Torah, and we'll understand how Torah works. Starting from right here. Now, based on all the above, we can understand what it says in the Zohar. Very famous thing. We say it so many times. It says Hashem looked into, Hashem looked into the world and created Torah, stage 2. But stage 1 is the Torah mechachma nafis comes from Chachma. Torah comes from Chachma. Based on this, that Chachma is above understanding. Chachma is above ability to be revealed. It doesn't mean that there's no logic there. It means it's above. It's a very, in a lot of times we say, in Chassidus, we talk about things, we talk about above understanding and below understanding. So I'll just give you a metaphor, if I can take a minute to do it, which is very powerful. We go back to the story of Purim. It says, Hipil Pur, Hu Agayro. It says Haman made a lottery. It's called the Gairol, a lottery. So the question is, what is the Megillah telling us? So I remember the Rebbe. What's the Megillah telling us? It says, Hipil Pur, he made a lottery. Hu Agayro is a lottery. Are you just translating the word Pur into Hebrew for us? I mean, the rabbis couldn't do it, or the Chumash, the Megillah itself, either say Hipil Gairol, he made a Gairol, or say he made a lottery, he made a Pur. Why does the Megillah write, when Haman wanted to kill the Jews, he threw a Pur, named Purim, and he made it, which is really called a lottery. Hu Agayro. The Rebbe explains an unbelievable idea. Just to take it in the 3-minute version, Haman understood that there's no way to get the Jews. In the way Hashem created the process of the world, the Yidden will always win, always be on top. Because Yidden are Teiv, and the enemies of the others want to destroy the Jews are evil, and good always wins. So Haman knew there's no way he could win. What did he want to do? He wanted to go to a level like above, like Chachma, above, to the point where in that level, Torah and mitzvahs don't matter, Rishayim and Tzaddikim don't matter, good and evil don't matter. What does that mean? All of that we have today, that something is wrong or right, is a created. You think Hashem really cares if an animal has split hooves or not? You think Hashem really cares if you shech an animal from the front of the neck or the back of the neck? That's created in Torah, but Hashem and His source is above all that. That's how a person does tshuva. That's why Purim and Kippur are so connected. How does a person do tshuva? You connect to Hashem and you say, Hashem, you don't love me or want, you don't care at the end of the day what I do. You love me, meaning there's above, and even that you don't care on that level. Haman said, if I could reach the level of Pur, what does Pur mean? A lottery, at that level above where everything's random, I could get the Jews. But he didn't know there's something called the Gairol. What's the difference between the Pur and the Gairol? Very interesting. There's 2 ways to have a random choice. One random choice is, I don't know what to do. I'm going to put into a hat 20 different choices, folded up, or I'm going to paint 15 ping pong balls, a certain word, and I'm going to mix them up and pull one out. Another way to do it is, I'm going to do it not outside. See, over there, I'm saying that's called Lamata Mesech. I'm doing it below. What does it mean? I am taking myself out of the picture. Whatever that decides, I'm going to choose. That is a very low level of choice. Why? Because that means it has nothing to do with me. That's what Haman wanted. Haman didn't know that the Yidden are Hashem's Gairol. We are Hashem's lottery in a different way. Gairol on a deeper level means not I don't want to make a choice, let someone else. I want to, without thinking, what do I really want? If someone like a psychologist that shows you an ink blot, what do you see? In other words, if you reach into the deepest part of yourself, above logic, above reasoning, what happens in there? So Gairol means I'm reaching into the deepest part of self, that which is super essential above any reasons. You understand? That means that what comes out, if you ever go to Hashem, or if they go to a person, if I have a reason why I choose or like my brother or why I like this, I have to have reasons. If without any chance to think about it, what's my immediate reaction to the deep part of me is to choose something that's called Gairol. I'm choosing that which is outside of me, below logic, that which is inside me, above logic, meaning it's my deepest identity. And on that level, Hashem will always choose the Jews. When Hashem is choosing beside a Gairol, that's why we say Hebrew poor. He tried to make a lottery, which is below logic, but instead it came out above logic, which means a deepest true identity came out. Why? What's my gut sense deepest inside of me? That's what we say with Chachma. Chachma, when we tap into that level, we're not talking about when we say something's a a chachma, like there's no logic, no, it's not understanding. Doesn't mean it's less than understanding. On the contrary, it's above understanding. Understanding comes from there. It's all logic and decisions come. Like when somebody says, let's see in a kid first. You say it by a kid. A kid says, I really want to stay up tonight and do something and play a game. And you say, why? I'm thinking back to my own kid. He says, the parent says, it's not a good idea. It is a good idea. Because if I'll go to sleep happy and then tomorrow I'll wake up happy, suddenly he's thinking of what came first, what I want. The reasons came later. That's how Chachma works. I want something, and because I want it, that expresses itself now in all these thoughts. So Ratzain is really higher than Chachma. Chachma is within me. Ratzain and Tainug, desire and pleasure are really above Chachma, and they actually guide how Chachma will go. Chachma is that initial spark of knowledge, wisdom, information, truth, and that expresses itself. We give different metaphors as a seed that's planted in the ground, as a lightning thing, as a lot of times someone could be sitting somewhere, and you're trying to figure something out, and you can't. A few minutes later, the idea pops into your head. You didn't have the solution yet, but you know you have it. If someone talks to you now, you lose it. If you, I got it, and now you take it, you can unpack it and unpack it. Chacham is an initial from the depth of your soul, the power of thinking, the power of wisdom, something comes up. That's Chachma. You can't control it to happen. It happens on its own. You could create the situation for it to happen. You can create a very good, they say you can't fall asleep on purpose. You go to sleep. There are two things you can't do on purpose. They say you can't fall in love and you can't fall asleep. They're both the word fall. And it's true. But you can create the circumstances for it to happen. If you try and fall asleep, you're not going to fall asleep. But if you go and create the circumstances, you could take a good shower, take a hot bath, put on some nice music, relax, you can fall asleep in a second. So you take a pill. You can fall asleep. Saying Chachma is not something you could pull it to happen, but you can create the circumstances that's why certain people have much more of these things. They're in the mode where they're constantly pushing themselves to understand and think deeply, and they're constantly getting innovative ideas. But the bottom line we want to say is Chachma is the deepest resource in our thinking self, in our comprehensive self, where it hasn't yet come down in a revealed state of wisdom. It's concealed. So we call it above logic, or we call it Kayach Ma'wat. I can't define it yet. It's indefinable because it's not yet been unpacked. Okay. And then now we say, Torah comes from Chachma. Why do we say that? We use that expression. What's the point here? This is very key to what we're going to say now. The reason for a mitzvah, this is one of the great ideas in Chassidus, and this is something which is mentioned a lot. The reason for a mitzvahs are not revealed. Now, you might say, 1 second, what are you talking about? I know why we put on tefillin to remember, Hashem and to have his mind over heart. I know we light Shabbos candles to be warmth and light into the house. I know why we do this. We have reasons given. Whereas we're going to go in the next few lines and see the reasons that we talk about are the most surface, external reasons that we talk about. Everything has various reasons. Sometimes the reason came later. For example, somebody says, people get 50 years old, you find a man, he's 56 years old, he needs to buy a motorcycle. Why? I need it. And he can start telling you 70 reasons. The reasons came later. You don't need a motorcycle. You want a motorcycle. Now you have reasons. Mitzvahs and truth are not logical. But you should know that there's a logic to them on a very simple level to some of them. Some of them would never see the logic to it because it can't be seen. Some of them only can see the deeper mystical insights. Chassidus tells you what the deeper idea is. And some of them are just hidden, and all of them is hidden to God the reason. In other words, we could take all let's wait till actually 2 lines and we'll see it. Let's see it inside. He says, so bottom line is, mitzvahs in the Torah are the mitzvahs loin is galu, not revealed. The real mitzvah, the real reason for a mitzvah is above all logic, above all understanding. Now, the Gam, he says, even in places where you find a reason or an explanation that's revealed to us, as you said, for an example, the mitzvah of tefillin, to remind you of your mind and your heart bound to God, etc. This reason that's explained to us, that's not the ultimate reason. Ugvuli, and the end of it. Meaning that's not the end and the final fact on it, the last word on the matter. What we're seeing is here that there's a much more to it. So if you take a mitzvah for an example, I'll take the mitzvah for an example of tefillin. We say we know the mitzvah of tefillin. If you think about the mitzvah of tefillin, so why do they have to be black? Why do they have to be square? Why do they have to be some things on the hand in one portion? Why does it have to be written in order? Why does it have to be Suddenly, why did they let us be like this? Oh, I don't know. What do you mean? You know the reason. I know the reason, but not how I can tell you a general thing. Why I need a car, because it's a fast car, it's good. Why do you need a car with the chrome lights and with this thing and this, the spoiler, whatever? There's details that are obviously above. So even when we understand a mitzvah, take any mitzvah, take a mitzvah matzah. So you say the mitzvah matzah is, you have to remember the way out of Pesach, going out of Mitzrayim, we remember the flat bread, have humility. Beautiful. Why does it have to be a kazayas? Why does it have to be eaten at a quick speed? Why is all the factors there? Who said this? Why does it have to be eaten by this leaning or not leaning? Why are all these things? So you start seeing that there's so much more. That's only talking about the very surface at our understanding. How about a deeper level? On deeper level. So we're going to see in a moment, as we said by Moshe Rabeinu's understanding, obviously there are very many levels of Torah. What we see in Torah, we're talking about the basic level. But there's a much more advanced level, We're going to talk about the words of Torah now. We're going to take in general the words of Torah, every word divided into three levels, three interpretations. One is the simple message of the story, that the story of Kairach, and the ground opened up and swallowed them. Definition, that's a simple story that happened. Then you can take the same exact story and explain it, how it applies to every generation, every time. What's the message? What's the lesson? What's the story? What does Kairach represent? What does Moshe represent? What does the ground opened up represent? Why were some people saved and hidden in the ground? You can understand it there. And then you can understand how it's learning God in a whole different meaning. What's going on in heaven, how they study it, a whole different meaning. And that's just talking on as general. You could divide it into three pieces: the simple meaning, the infinite meaning, the deeper interpretation applicable to life at all times and in all generations, and what it truly means, not just in our human understanding. That's not even getting into the philosophical part, the midrashic part, the homiletical part, the secrets that a lot of people can look into the Torah and count letters and see it was predicted, the story of the Holocaust, that people were able to see in retrospect. All things in the history were hidden. As a matter of fact, there's a beautiful thing I just heard recently about the Rebbe said that the Rebbe's view of Torah was something fascinating, different than everyone else said. Everybody else used to say that Torah includes everything. Torah is infinite, includes every single part of Torah, includes every part of life, every part of the world. Everything's included in the Torah. The Rebbe took it a step further. Every letter in Torah includes all the entire Torah in it. The entire Torah, with every single mitzvah, with every single commandment, is included in each letter of the Torah. And that was something nobody understood until they discovered the DNA. And they saw that in every part of the DNA includes the instruction for the entire body. Suddenly, 1 second, you're still able to understand how one letter of Torah includes all of it, meaning there's levels and levels that we don't understand in Torah. Based on that, let's see what he says here. Let's go another few minutes and we'll stop. He says, it's the inside of the Torah, much deeper than the reasons that we see in tefillin or Shabbos candles or matzah or mezuzah. Hidden inside every single mitzvah, there's a reason that is deeper. Meaning, we said Torah comes from chachma. Yes, Torah comes from chachma means there's an infinite, unrevealed amount of wisdom that we're never going to get. So whatever we understand in Torah, whatever anyone's ever going to interpret in Torah, that is not the ultimate in depth. You think you understand it. It's like I heard a story about this guy. I forgot his name. A person was talking to the Rebbe, a brilliant person, and he stood in the opening of the Rebbe's room. I hope the story is accurate. Heard it from a good source. He was standing by the door to the Rebbe's room, and the Rebbe was standing in him. He's from Eretz Yisrael, and they were talking and learning. And in the conversation, they weren't even talking information. Like the Rebbe mentioned to him, Gemara Brachas, and he would say, "What is the Yeridea?" And we would say, but they were just quoting sources to have a discussion. It was a very advanced discussion. That Yael Khan was standing there enthralled, because Yael Khan is brilliant, and he was enthralled by it. So after it was over, the person left, and he turned to Yael Khan and he said, "You think you know who your Rebbe is? You have no idea." And Yael Khan said to him, "And you think you do know?" Everyone on their level, you think everyone thinks I get him. Okay, and this guy was a brilliant scholar. There's a limit to how much each person could see. How deep is it? The kid thinks, a kid in the 8th grade thinks I know everything in science. I finished everything. And then when he gets to high school, he finds out there's another level. Another level in the college, etc. Now comes amazing words. In every single word. And every single word that says from Hashem, came out of Hashem's mouth, so to speak, to the Nevi'im, and which are recorded in the Torah Nevi'im Miksuvim, that means the Chumash and the scriptures, the writings, the prophets, whether it's talking about words that we're doing now in the Chumash Devarim, words of critique, and Moshe Rabeinu is giving a speech, you guys got to be good, you got to follow Hashem's Torah. Whether it's stories, and Bilam went, and this guy went, it seems to be recording history. God forbid it's a history book. Inside every word, it's written and included depth that's above any human comprehension. That means Torah has a depth that we never get. Suddenly, Torah is not about a cow that bumps into a cow. It's not about two fighting over a talus. Yes, on the most external, lowest expression, how does Torah express itself? Yes, it does. It's like saying, I don't know if this is a good metaphor. You want to know what is a cow? Going back to the cow metaphor, which we like very much. What is a cow? A cow says moo. Yes, a cow does say moo. That's why all kids in the preschool learn. What does a cow go? A cow goes moo. But that doesn't define a cow. That's one detail what a cow does. Okay, so a cow also gives milk. Yes, that's what's a cow? You could go and discuss it until you decide what is a cow. And everything you describe is still going to be limited to what a cow is. And that's just talking about one bovine, one cow. Whenever talking about an angel, not talking about the Tzilus, if you expect the word of Torah, that someone understood that Torah means that, Bilam went, or, a story with Balak. This is a surface, yes, there's a truth, and this is Torah, but this is the lowest expression of Torah. You want to know what Torah really is? Take a step further, and you'll find out that it says the expression given, that I saw when I was preparing this, the reason for the Torah that we know, and the information that we know, the interpretation that we know, is like a drop of water in an infinite sea of water. How much is one drop in an infinite sea? That's how much understanding we have of Torah when we learn a pasuk in Chumash. Not that we're missing the Chumash. This is Torah. Well, this is Torah as it's reflected and shared in the most basic, simplistic way that a human mind can grasp it. That a child 5 years old can understand it. And then you can have a level where an adult can understand it. And then a scholar can understand it. And then a prophet can understand it. And you can keep going until how it is in its purest source. But all these levels are just the lowest expression. I don't want to say lowest. The most relatable expressions, the most external expressions of Torah. Suddenly we're seeing that Torah is much different than we spoke until now. Torah is not just a brilliant, godly wisdom that we can tap and understand. Torah is completely above us. We were gifted that there was a part of Torah that we can sort of scrape off the edges to understand. And as we go further in this chapter, we're going to give it, we'll stop here. We're going to start off next week with explaining where do you see this expressed most in a fascinating concept called Kri and Ksiv. Kri and Ksiv is you have certain words in the Torah that are written one way and read a different way. And the question is why? Either write it the right way. It's like, sometimes you have like the calendar that I publish, you have mistakes in it. I say, I know it says, this word, but read it. Don't pay attention to the typo. And the Torah is not typos. There are certain words that are written one way and intentionally read it differently. And if you read it the way it's written, you didn't fulfill the mitzvah of reading it. We have it in the Megillah famously. So the question is why? And this is a beautiful insight into Torah has levels that can be expressed and can't be expressed. And we'll go into that and we'll see. And all of this is going to explain this idea, the relationship with Torah and God and us, how we have this thing that connects us. So we'll stop here. And hopefully we appreciate some of what Alter Rebbe is saying here. I was thinking, just like we say we kind of understand the depth of Torah, I think we scratch the surface of what Alter Rebbe's Tanya is talking about.